Have you been trying to manifest something for a while now and it's simply not coming? Then don't worry, because I do have the solution for you. So make sure you watch this video until the end, because this video is going to be a little bit more practical. We are going to revise your childhood. Why is this important? We usually get programmed in the first 7 years of our lives. In the first 7 years, our brain waves are mainly in the theta brainwave state, which is like a big sponge, and we just suck everything in and we take on beliefs of people around us. Everything that we experience ourselves is getting stored in our subconscious mind. You could say it's like a computer, and you have the basic setting. You install your operating system. Of course, later on, just like with the computer, we can alter that. We can delete specific programs. We can install new programs. That would be other things that we experience throughout our lives. And of course, we can upgrade some programs. The revision technique, you could see, is like deinstalling or overwriting some programs that are no longer good for us, that maybe hinder us. For example, maybe in childhood you felt neglected. You did not get the love you wanted, maybe because for some reason you had to be separated with your parent, your caretaker, your mom or dad, for whatever reason. Maybe even the worst case scenario, they passed away, or maybe one of them was sick, or there was a divorce, or maybe your parents were just not very nurturing. That happens as well. But the problem is, what happens in the first 7 years of our lives is getting installed, which means there is most likely some kind of program installed, like, I don't deserve to be loved. Rationally, you may know, yes, I do deserve to be loved, of course, but subconsciously, you may think, I don't deserve to get loved because I wasn't proven that I was loved in my childhood. Or something happened that then installs that fear of not getting loved or getting positive attention. Maybe it was the opposite. Maybe you had a parent that was very needy and overprotective, and then you realized getting too much attention and not being able to grow freely. That can, of course, then result in an avoidant attachment style. And then maybe you do want to have that relationship, but you're just too scared to really open up because you already made the experience that opening up would mean to get smothered, for example. And that is the reason why in many relationship dynamic, we do have one person with the anxious attachment style and one person with the avoidant attachment style. But both can form out of both reasons. Maybe you did not get that love and positive attention. That, of course, then can result in I'm longing to fill that void within me through a partner, and I'm expecting them to fill that void within me, but it's not their job. It's always our job. And then the anxious attachment style can develop, but it could also be the opposite. It's when you never had that warmth, then when you enter a relationship, you get scared of it because you're not used to it, and that can result in the avoidant attachment style. At the same time, if you had too much of it, if you've been really smothered and you never had the ability to grow free and make your own experiences, and you learn to be really dependent on someone, then that could mean that, again, there's this void. You are not really able to take care of yourself, so you want someone else to do it, and it can develop the anxious attachment style. But also, if you've been smothered too much, it can create the avoidant attachment style. So you see, a lot of what we're going through is formed in that early childhood. But if you know about the law of assumption, then we always get mirrored our assumptions. Doesn't matter if they're known beliefs or subconscious beliefs. So if you have the anxious attachment style, you most likely attract someone with the avoidant attachment style because that is your perfect fit. Why? Because you feel the need to have someone, but we never manifest what we want. We manifest what we are energetically, and then there's neediness, like I need something because I don't have it within myself. And what do we get mirrored? The not having it within ourselves. And then we attract someone who's not going to give it to us until we learned to give that to us to ourselves. On the other hand, You may really want to have a relationship, because we all do. I think that we are wired, unless something is like really, really broken, to crave that connection to someone else. But if you have negative experiences, maybe you were smothered too much, then you may attract somebody with the anxious attachment style, somebody who's really clingy and who's not giving you your space. So how do we fix it? Unfortunately, we don't fix it by sitting down and telling the other person what we need, because that is not how mirroring works. Mirroring works to get into alignment and to clear our own limiting beliefs, to literally write that new past within ourselves that then can get mirrored back by the other person, and only then it will get mirrored back. We can only attract that commitment if there's no neediness. There is I want to have it, there's like a desire to have it, but not the need anymore. So why does the revision technique work? It works because your subconscious mind also does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagination. And we can use that because we can tell our subconscious mind what you have experienced, it is not true. We're not trying to tell your conscious mind, because sometimes I have people that are telling me, well, I feel like I'm just lying to myself. And to those I say, imagine you want to go to another city and you write the destination into your navigation system. Does that mean that you're automatically there? No, you still have to get there. So just typing in where you want to be is not that you automatically are there. Also, please make sure to watch my video on states, because in that video I explain how we can shift states. Because I've realized that when we recreate ourselves, and in that case we create our childhood, we choose who we want to be energetically. And to me, I had this big realization, I don't want to be the person anymore who's been through stuff and grew strong out of it. I want to be the person who's always been happy. So why not be that if I can be that? And again, we won't overwrite your real memories, but what I have experienced is that, when you're lying in bed and the old negative stuff comes up like a broken record and you go through it again and again and again, you stop that. You just don't feel like getting into that again because it's not important anymore. You kind of dissociated yourself from it, but not in a toxic way, not by oppressing it, but by actively working on it. Also, what I have experienced is a shift with all of my family members. The dynamic completely changed to the better. I don't want to get into details because, of course, it is quite personal. But I can tell you that I am now in a place I never thought was possible in the best possible way. So how do we do that? We do rewrite our past. And I've had clients asking me, how do I do that? So this video is very practical. We are doing it right now. But of course I have to say, I'm giving you some kind of a template right now. And if you want to have a PDF of that template, you can contact me. Just find my email in the description box below, send me an email, and I will send it to you. However, of course, it is just a template because everybody's experience was a little bit different. This is to give you like a guideline how you could do it, and then of course you put your own personal stuff into there, okay? You individualize it. But let's start, okay? So we recreate our childhood. How did I do that, and how do I teach my clients to do it? Of course, in this scenario, I'm going to type it. However, of course, you can do it in handwriting. And I often actually would recommend to do it in handwriting. However, you can type it if that is something that is more convenient to you. But now let's begin. And I remember my childhood. I was always loved and I always felt loved. Of course, that is not the same, right? Being loved and feeling loved. I was always everyone's favorite. Was always, and I like to use words like always, because I think it makes whatever you want to write even stronger. You tell your subconscious mind, always, it's always been like this. I was always everyone's number one priority. I had the happiest childhood one can imagine. Mom was always there for me. Dad was always for me. And if something like, I don't know if I can say it, YouTube guidelines, but the V words, not being treated too well, even in a physical way, if something like that was an issue, then you would write, I always felt safe. Sorry. I always felt nurtured. I was always protected. My mom always had time for me. However, I was allowed to, how do we want to say it? I was allowed to make my own decisions, is maybe not the right word. Be myself. Let's say be myself, okay? By that I want to say also, like not a helicopter parent, you were able to, like children test sometimes, they want to go play, and they don't want a parent that is completely overprotected. So I'm sorry, English is not my native language, so I don't know the opposite of overprotection right now, but something along that line. If you have been overprotected, if that was not the case, if maybe you have been neglected, then we already had, they were always there for you. You always felt safe, you always felt nurtured. It is meant to be a template to apply to as many people out there. You can of course always leave out sentences that do not apply to you, or replace them with other sentences that are more suitable for your situation. What else could we do? We always played and laughed a lot. Of course, we can also mention other things. For example, if you were growing up in a family where money was an issue, we always had everything we needed, and my needs were always met. Is that how you say it? My needs were met? Again, you can use your own words. And if you had siblings, I always got along with my siblings, sister, brother. We were the best friends. All of my friends loved coming over. That again is something you could use if you want to create more like, this warm family where the friends come over, everybody is welcome. If that is something that you don't want to use, again, just drop it. Then of course you can write something like, I was always accepted. We already do have, I could always be myself, but we also want to include something maybe like, I was always accepted. Especially if you maybe are a little bit different from your family. Maybe they're jocks and you're the very intelligent person, or vice versa. Or maybe you are homosexual and felt like maybe you were not accepted for who you were. So of course I was always accepted by all family members. I was the star. And again, this is you can be big. You can write, I was everyone's favorite. Yes. Maybe, you have siblings and you can be like, no, I want us to be all treated the same. It is your text. However, you can make yourself the star of the family, the king, the queen, the little prince, the little princess. If that is what you wanted to be. If you would have wanted to be, it doesn't have to be like overly spoiled, but been treated with respect and be treated like the king or the little prince or princess. It is your memory. You can do however you want it. You don't have to feel bad. Of course, we don't want to write that everybody was jealous of me, for example, because we don't want other people to feel bad. Why? Because they are us pushed out. So you don't ever want to manifest anything that is bad for another person, because the other person is an aspect of ourselves. And that is basically karma. If you wish ill on someone else, you are wishing ill on an aspect of yourself, which will sooner or later manifest. So the star You don't have to use it. It's just like, the prince, the princess, and beloved, and, everybody had time for me. And of course, if something was missing, like you never went on vacation, we always went on vacation, or I was always allowed to summer camp, or whatever it is, you know. You can write enough money, or you could do something like, everyone in my family was always healthy, physically and mentally, if that had been an issue. However, if, for example, you literally lost a parent, I don't know. I mean, in revision, you can revise that they were there. Absolutely. Sometimes it may be too big a gap for you, though. So you can manifest or revise to have an amazing, loving caregiver. So that even though maybe you have lost a parent, like you had this big safety net and you had people who were there and cared and to help you to process that. That, for example, is something you could write. Or maybe even if you really, really hated your family. The reason why you can give yourself a beautiful new memory is that in some timeline it existed. And I would advise for you to watch my Death series playlist where I talk about quantum immortality, that we are constantly reborn into the same setting. By same setting, I don't want to say exactly the same setting, but the same family, but there's different versions of each family member. They have been through some stuff and they were distorted, or they have never been through that stuff and they were completely healthy and the best possible parent, or maybe they have been through stuff but worked through it and became strong. Every scenario already has been created, and you could have been born in each of those scenarios, and you were born in each of those scenarios. So in another life, everything you can imagine exists. So in another life, you have experienced exactly what you want. One thing that I did personally is that I ended up then writing 1 or 2 sentences about every family member. We already wrote mom, but you can again say something like, I always felt safe and nurtured with mom. I always felt protected with dad. I just add this here for the PDF. So you can write a sentence or as many as you want about any family member specifically. I did that myself. I went through each family member and said like a sentence or 2. And what I did later on is that then I wrote a short text about each family member individually. But you see, it's not even like 1 page. How much is it? 159 words. I mean, you could, go through your aunt, your uncle, your grandparents, if anything was negative with them. If everything was completely fine, then of course you don't have to do it. You can write it in a way that you always felt loved by that specific person, loved, respected. And again, however you want to phrase it, whatever was missing. So basically, whatever is missing, you just write it in the way you would have wanted it to be. If you have some real amazing memories, for example, you had those amazing holidays, Christmas was always great, you can put that in there as well. So what do you do then? You read it. You read it daily. And I mean daily. Maybe even a couple of times for several weeks. It does take some time to really reprogram it. And here it is always a little bit better to do a little bit more than not enough. Because we want to reprogram your subconscious mind permanently. And I mean it permanently. So you will benefit for the rest of your life if you take this serious now. And as you can see, it is not a long text. So you don't have to worry that it is going to be this really massive and long text. This is the general one, as you can see. I was always happy. I was always loved. Everyone is always there for me. I was always priority. I always got to be me. I got to develop the way that I wanted to be. And we could, for example, always add something like, I was always supported by each family member, and I always felt supported. Because being supported and feeling supported is not exactly the same. One is quite objective, but we still may feel like we didn't because maybe we were blind, maybe, sometimes we're not open to perceive things even though they are real and maybe the other person does treat us well, but sometimes we just are not open. So I was loved and I felt loved, not the same. Because maybe your mom loved you, but she was not very good at showing it, or your dad. So big difference. I was loved and I felt loved. Even if you, for example, know my dad loved me, he just has difficulties showing it, you include I always felt loved. We don't want to know just rationally. We want to tell our subconscious mind, I was always loved. So this is self-concept. Who are you now? I am the person who had this amazing childhood, who was always loved, who was always everyone's number one priority. That is who I am. So I hope it helped you. And again, you can have a copy of this if you write to me. This is for the PDF, and just please write something in the subject line, PDF for revision, and then please write which revision it is, because there will be more. Okay, I'm going to do childhood revisions with each family members. There will be for specific situations, there will be for romantic relationships, and then individual romantic relationships. There will be plenty of those. So please make sure you subscribe so you won't miss it, because in my opinion, revision is one of the easiest way to actually reprogram your mind. It does take a little effort, but yes, again, it's like now 184 words, and there's even my email address and stuff like that. So it's not that much work to do. Also, I do have a service that you can book, and you will find a link to my services and my price list in the description box. Let's do it in violet, because that is basically my favorite color. I script for you. And you heard it right. You will find a link to my price list below. So what does that mean? Some of you, I know, don't really know how to get started. Some people are better writer than others. I don't know, you may be a musical or math genius and have no idea about writing, and that is fine. If you want to really use this amazing tool, revision, and you want it to apply more your specific situation, then you can get in contact with me and book that service. And what will happen then is that we talk a little bit, and I see what the problem is, what has been lacking, and maybe even ask, some names like what was your brother or sister's name, if you want to have it really personalized. And then I will write the text for you specifically for your situation. What you then have to do is, I would still ask you to copy it, because the writing, it does something to your brain. So I would ask you that you would copy it and still read it on a daily basis. But I would write for you if that is something that you have difficulties with, or maybe you want to learn more about scripting or revision, because I also script for you if that is something that you want. If you want to get started and you don't really know how to, then I can help you with that. Of course, you can also book a coaching with me if you want to do it yourself, but you want to know a little bit more about the details. Fine as well. Just reach out, and I'm sure we are going to get the perfect text for you. And I have to say, when I say perfect, it is quite subjective, because there's not the one perfect text, right? You basically can't do much wrong. We just want to avoid some words. Instead of I don't want to be ill, we want to say healthy, because you want to avoid words like ill or poor or, I don't know, brokenhearted. And we use the positive words. Otherwise, there isn't too many rules. Just, of course, write it in past tense and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. That is the biggest rule. And also, of course, it is best to stay on a mental diet. So if you do read your text, I don't know, a couple minutes each day, and then for like 1 hour while you're cooking or walking somewhere, standing in line, and you just think about how bad your childhood was, then you put a lot more energy into the negative and not into what we now want to get into your subconscious mind. So the mental diet is, of course, essential with whatever technique you do. But yes, I do script for you. Of course, and that is very important for me to point out, scripting or the scripted revision is not the only way to do a revision. We can also do this with affirmations, and maybe in the future I will give you some affirmations to reprogram your past, but I already have videos that do that. And I even do have a childhood revision meditation, and I do have it in different options. I think I do have it in audible and subliminal, and I think also with music or nature sounds. So make sure you check out the playlist, and also probably I do have links to that specific video in the description box below, probably to at least one of the versions, so you can instead listen to those meditations on a daily basis for weeks. It does take a moment to reprogram our subconscious mind, or of course you can do both simultaneously, right? So make sure to check out those videos as well. So anyway, now you do have my email address there. And yeah, I'm happy to hear from you. And of course, I am available for personal coaching. Please check out my other content, because I do have a lot of manifesting techniques for you and a lot of videos on coaching to get you to your end goal, whatever it is. So have fun with your revision, and I hope I see you soon. Now, bye-bye. If you want to book your own custom-made affirmation or subliminal, you will find my contact information in the description box below.